Hello, welcome back, everybody. I'm in a little different spot today. Normally, you see me in my basement with that boring wall behind me. But today, I'm in my kitchen because we are going to be talking about how the food that our farmers are producing can be kept safe in our kitchen. And that sounds kind of weird because we don't think of our food as being not safe or unsafe. But there are things we have to do to make sure that the food we buy is ready for consumption. It's ready for us to eat and ensure that we're not getting sick. So, you already know that we do things like use hot pads. If you're going to take something out of your oven, you don't want to burn your hand. You already know that we try to keep things clean. We wash our hands. But sometimes we forget some of those steps. And even though all of those are important things to do, there are other things we do for food safety. So today we're going to talk about 4 steps that we try to take to make sure that food is safe for us and for the people we're cooking for and sharing our food with. Most of this information can be found on foodsafety.gov, and I'm going to share that website with you because they have some great links that I will talk about, but I'm not going to take the time to show you all of those pieces. But there are things that I would encourage you and your family to check out. Okay, so if we're talking about food safety, there are 4 main steps we want to take. We're keeping our food safe mostly from bacteria. And last week you heard us talking about bacteria. We said they're very small germs, and bacteria aren't always bad. In fact, bacteria is what gives sour cream and yogurt that tangy flavor you're used to. There are bacteria that live in your body and help your body digest food and help you stay healthy. But some bacteria can be really harmful to you. And bacteria can commonly be in food if it's not kept safe. So one of the first things we do when we're thinking of food safety is today we pasteurize our dairy products. Now, we haven't always done that, and you might not know what that means. But we want to make sure that that milk from cows doesn't have any bacteria by the time it gets to a consumer, to a person who is eating that or drinking that. Now, our dairy farmers take really careful steps to make sure that those cows are clean when they're milked. Their equipment is really clean. And if you look at some of our farm chats in the past, especially the one we just did at a dairy here recently, you can see them taking those steps. So they are doing things on their end to make sure that that milk is staying safe, but you know that it goes through quite a few steps before it's going to the grocery store the next day. So if you look at dairy products, look at my milk here. Clear down, kind of in small writing, it says it's pasteurized. My cream here says ultra pasteurized. And this sour cream says the same thing down here. Okay, it is pasteurized. Now, what that is a heating process that kills a lot of those bacteria so that when that food is to you, it's safe. And there was a scientist named Louis Pasteur. That's where we get the word pasteurized. And he was figuring this all out in the 1860s. So for us, that's a really long time ago, but that's such an important step that happens to a lot of food, but especially to our dairy, okay? If there's still bacteria in food when you eat it, some of those can cause food poisoning. And you've probably heard of food poisoning. Commonly, you might hear about E. coli or salmonella. So today we're kind of going to focus on what we do to keep those bad bacteria out of our food, okay? The first thing we do is we like to keep our kitchens and ourselves clean. So we wash our hands. That's really important right now. It's always really important, but it's making the news right now. So we're washing our hands for 20 seconds. We're using warm water and soap. We have to keep things like cutting boards and knives. Those have to be clean. Later we'll talk about what can happen if you don't keep those clean enough. Okay? And so we use things like Clorox wipes, if you can find them right now, to keep our counters cleaned off. But even if you can't find that stuff, just using hot, soapy water, cleaning your counters, cleaning your dishes before you use them. Those steps are really important, okay? We also have to clean our produce. So produce are those fresh fruits and vegetables. And you can use like a brush like this, so under the water, to make sure that you're getting it really clean. But I want to show you what happens if you don't clean these things first, okay? Now, I've got my cutting board. Whoops, I've got my knife. They're clean. They just came out of my dishwasher. I have cleaned this apple, and it's just nothing special, just an apple, okay? I also have some drops of food coloring. And this is going to be a symbol. This is going to represent bacteria, okay? Remember, not all bacteria are bad, but let's talk about what happens to this apple. Okay, so right now, our orchards in Iowa aren't blossoming. It's not warm enough. We're just getting through the winter. But in other parts of the country and in the world, they're growing these crops right now. So first, you have someone who's going to pick this apple. So they touch it. We're going to use some bacteria that their hand would have. Just a drop. Okay. Now, someone picked it and touched it. The next person is going to pick it out of the basket and load it onto a truck. Okay, so it's going to travel across the country. It has to get to Iowa. Let's say it arrives at the grocery store and somebody else is going to touch it and put it on the shelf. Now, I'm kind of picky about what my apples look like. So if I'm going to go shopping on a normal day, I might touch a few of them. So there's people touching them. We'll put in a couple drops. A couple picky people like myself. Touching them to find just the right one. And then finally, you grab it. You're ready to take it home. Okay, so we have drops in there that are showing us all the different people who have touched this. We didn't even put in drops for the box, the truck, the store, but all of those things, even when people aren't touching this, that bacteria is getting to it. Now, I'm going to tilt my camera down so you can see here. Okay, so we have our drops. Sorry, we have my cord too. I'm clearly not a professional at making videos. So we have all of that bacteria here. And when you get home, before you cut this and eat it, hopefully you're already in the habit of washing these fruits and vegetables, okay? But if you don't wash all of that bacteria and it's living on the outside of this apple, let's see what happens when we cut into it. Look at that. Okay, so even though that bacteria was only on the outside of the skin, the minute our clean knife touched it, it drug that bacteria through the inside of our apple. I don't know about you, but I don't want to eat all of that bacteria, okay? So even though this food coloring will be fine, I can wash it off and eat this apple. If that was really all this bacteria we're talking about, it's now on the inside of your produce that you're going to eat. So part of food safety is keeping things clean. Before I use this stuff again, I obviously need to wash it off so that these same bacteria in my food coloring don't move to the next food that I'm going to cook with, okay? The next thing, the second step we take after keeping things clean is keeping things separate. So if you go to the grocery store and you buy a pack of chicken, chances are when you leave, they're going to bag that into its own plastic bag so it's not touching other things. That's because raw meat can have a lot of bacteria that doesn't die until we cook it. And so we don't want all of our apples in the same bag as our chicken getting that bacteria that's harder to wash off, okay? We also keep cutting boards. We're going to keep these separate. So I would never cut chicken on this and then just slide right over and start cutting an apple on top of that bacteria from my chicken. That wouldn't be safe. I either have to wash this with that soapy water, or I need to get a clean one if I'm kind of in a hurry. Maybe I have a second one I can use. So we keep things separate. The third step for food safety is making sure we cook things at the right temperature. We have this meat thermometer. So this thermometer, you can see the end end of it. We would just stick this into meat to check the temperature, and then we can read that temperature. Most meat and seafood needs to be cooked to at least 145 degrees, and a lot need to be hotter than that. So one of the things I'm going to link is a chart that shows what temperature common foods need to be cooked to, okay? If you don't cook that food hot enough, you might not kill that harmful bacteria. That's especially true in meat and eggs and seafood. So we use this at our house if we're cooking meat. If we're cooking beef or pork or chicken or lamb, we're gonna grab this, and we always try to check and make sure that that's hot enough, okay? The last step, we talked about number 3, keeping things warm enough. But the fourth thing is we have to chill things, and we have to keep things cold enough also. Now, in the past, they weren't lucky enough to have a refrigerator and a freezer, and so they preserved food by packing it into salt or canning things. We still do some of those things. I like to can fruits and vegetables in the summer, but I do that because I enjoy it, not because it's the only way I can keep my food safe. Today we do have those refrigerators, we have freezers, and those are helpful. So we don't waste as much food, hopefully, because we do have ways of keeping it safe. Now, if I made, let's talk about chicken again. It's a good example. So if I cooked some chicken, I'm gonna cook that to about 165 degrees. Chicken has to get pretty hot. I'm gonna cook my chicken. We eat it, but I like to cook enough that I don't have to cook every single day. I like to try to have some leftovers if I can. So if I eat, and then I go watch a show, and I leave that chicken out for 3 hours before I go to bed, that's a problem. Because that chicken is gonna cool down, and it gets into what we call the danger zone. Now, the danger zone is when our food is still a little warm, but it cools off enough that that bacteria now has this warm environment to move around and grow. We don't want that to happen. So we need our food to be hot enough when we eat it that that bacteria is not growing, it's killed. But if we leave it out too long, that bacteria that's around us starts to grow again. So what we can do is stick it in our refrigerator or our freezer. We need to do that within 1 or 2. 2 would be a lot. Hopefully within 1 hour of eating that food, you stick your leftovers into a colder space. Okay? If they're cool enough, that bacteria doesn't have a warm environment that it likes to grow. So we want to keep it cool. We have to chill it out, okay? Normally, that food needs to be eaten, those leftovers. We try to eat those within 3 or 4 days. I'm probably guilty of leaving stuff too long, and I'm trying to be better at just eating those things the next day so that they don't start to grow bacteria. And then when you take those leftovers out to eat them again, you want to make sure you heat them up really well. Your microwave or your stove or your oven, you want to heat that food again and make sure it reaches that temperature that it needed to be the first time. Okay, so those 4 steps, we're going to clean the things around us, clean our produce, clean your hands. We are going to keep things separate. Third, we want to make sure things cook to a warm enough temperature. And fourth, when we're done, we need to chill that food and make sure we heat it up and eat it again soon enough that it stays safe, okay? So those are kind of the 4 things we're gonna make sure we do to keep food safe. This week, if you want to enter for a prize, there's a short quiz. I promise it's not tough, okay? 6 questions. If you get at least 3 of those questions right, your name will go into the drawing for a prize. This is a Google form quiz. So wherever you're watching this video, you should be able to click the link, take that quiz. If you get at least 3 right, I'll get your name for the drawing. You can take it more than 1 time. Okay, so if you miss too many, try it again. And then in 2 weeks, we will draw names for those prizes. Okay, so I hope everyone's staying safe stay healthy, enjoy that sunshine this week, and check out our website. See if you can enter for one of those prizes. Bye, guys.